You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband, I don't mean him, though I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back, and men, to the Wise Smart Women podcast. Today, as usual, I'm podcasting. If I say broadcasting, when actually I mean podcasting, David will correct me, which will really fucking annoy me.
No,
So you will.
No.
You will. You'll annoy me and correct me. Anyway, he's lying on a bed while I'm doing this and I'm sitting on a chair. That just tells you everything. So I am podcasting from DY, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. And today I have the great pleasure of talking to the wonderful social activist, Martin Bella. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Dave. Oh, and you too.
Oh,
There you go.
rude.
Yeah.
Oh, so rude.
G'day, Marty. How you going?
You left it way too early for me, Annie, I've got to say. It was always going to happen.
So yeah. So this is the David and Martin podcast, and what I'm going to be doing is just making them cups of tea, and I've cooked some scones.
Yeah.
And then David's requested fish and chips, so I've got to go out and do the fishing and batter it. Anyway, right. So I am now, David is going to stay with me because he may have I doubt that he'll have anything salient to say, but he may have some input. But Martin is here because when I was looking at Martin's feed, I noted that he had commented, someone had made a comment on a site, and he had highlighted it. And I wanted to talk to him about just the awful content and the fact that people think it's okay to say such incredibly awful things about women. So what was it that happened, Martin?
Well, as many of you know, the Brackman and Gherkin and I have sort of teamed up. So and it's been great because we kind of support one another. You know, we understand that there's no one else out there really in our little circle that kind of knows what we're doing.
I know that.
Yeah, but then
Except for me.
There's some other creators there that are in the same boat, and a few of them have sort of come in, just we throw ideas around and things like that. And there's one lady, and as I said in my clip, like, I think she's great. She's quirky, but she's got a great heart. And she put something out, and the responses were just hideous, and she sent them to me. She was quite upset.
So what sort of stuff did she put out that elicited the response?
Well, she's generally always doing, she's currently raising money for suicide awareness. She put something out about, like, I'd spoken about a friend of mine who'd broken down in a cafe. She heard that her sister had died. And a complete stranger came up and hugged her. Now, this lady had a similar experience. Like, she'd gone up to a girl in a pub that looked upset, and she was just talking about how we need to be more aware of each other and the difficulties and things that we might be facing. She was basically asking people to be human.
Yes.
Now, the responses, and what's alarming is whoever this is, and it's Eros the Nude Poet. This was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. And I put a video out, and a whole lot of people tried to hunt old mate down. And he's on a number of platforms. There's Eros, the nude poet. There's Eros, the writer. Same thing. And he actually tries to merchandise stuff with a logo on it saying support women, believe it or not.
What?
But
That was him?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And if I could, these three comments that he said to her are not the only comments that he said. There were a number of women sent screenshots on different platforms of the things that this absolute degenerate had said and said to them.
Right. So what was it, Marty, that he'd written to this woman?
Righto. Well, the first comment, look, I just find this unbelievable that you would say this to anyone, especially on a post like that. So here we go. I know where you live and I'm coming to cut your off.
Oh, my God.
Yep. That's the first one. The second one, someone replied in a normal fashion, not to that, but just to the lady. I'd blank that out. The second comment, you are marked for death, all in capitals. And then the third one, virtually straight away, I'm going to hunt you down and rape you with a knife. I'm sorry, but this is the sort of thing that's... Now, to me, no matter how much you dislike someone, you would never say something like that. And especially to say something like that to someone of the opposite sex, like that's depraved. That I just can't believe it. I was stunned to see that. But when you see the other comments, basically just hitting complete strangers up for sex, for this, for that. And this character's out there.
And this is Eros the poet.
Eros the nude poet.
Eros the
all in one word. That's on Twitter.
Eros the nude poet.
No, nude.
The
nude poet.
Oh, we didn't hear
People
special.
sent things to me on other platforms that I've got tucked away that I don't know how to find. It's on the phone there. But the most shocking thing, like she rang me, she was upset. And I suppose looking for a bit of support. And I said to her, you need to go to the police over it. She said she'd reported it to the platform itself. And I said, you need to go to the police. And this is the thing. She actually said, I live in a small country town. They will laugh at me. Now, that's shocking. Now, people might not know I had 3 daughters. I've got 9 granddaughters. And I said to my daughters, I haven't had this conversation with the granddaughters yet. They're not old enough. But I said, if something happens to you, you need to report it. Like, come to me or report it. If not for you, then for the next girl, the next woman. You have a responsibility to other human beings. So it's not just about, and I know how hard it is, and I'm quite proud. My girls they're savage. So they have no problem with stepping forward. But the alarming thing, as I said, is that, and look, to be perfectly blunt, I've faced the same thing on different issues. I've gone to the police and had it discounted. I had a bloke roll a motorbike, ram me, rolled a motorbike over the top of me, sprayed something in my eyes, flogged me.
What? What physically rolled hang on, go back. He rolled a motorbike over you?
I was on a 4-wheeler going up to a block. He was coming down the road. He shouldn't have been on the block. I mentioned it. I got back on the bike. He rammed me, this is the third time he'd rammed me actually, rolled the 4-wheeler over the top of me. I was sort of half knocked unconscious. As I got up, he sprayed degreaser in my eyes, give me a flogging. I managed to get up, kept going forward. He backed off enough. Then he tried to run me over again. And the DPP in Queensland dumped the case.
Why?
Well, they said that there was not enough chance of
conviction.
A conviction, and it wasn't in the public interest. Now, if it had stayed in the magistrate's court, would have got done, but it went to district court, and that's the way the DPP works. So I'm afraid I have a very jaundiced view of the police and the legal apparatus in this country at the moment. And I can see it from the point of view of this lady. You don't just go, if you're going to go in and get laughed at or it's just wrong. It's wrong.
You know, there's a saying that men fear women because they fear that they're going to be laughed at, and women fear men because they fear they're going to be killed. And it's an interesting sort of distinction. Of course, if we go back to the notion of misogyny is as old as time itself. So this is not a new phenomena that we're grappling with, but we are unfortunately now grappling with misogyny or, violence in any context. We're now unfortunately grappling with anonymity and with people feeling they can say anything they like because nobody knows, who they are. So, I mean, I guess it's so disturbing. I was saying to David, we live in an apartment block, and I've had two instances, one a few months ago where I got into the lift and there was a man in there, and he turned to me and said, "Gee, it's been a long time. I wonder if I remember how to do it." And I was so sort of stunned that I was just completely stunned. I'm a person who has a fair degree of composure, and I had no idea. I sort of half laughed because I didn't know what to say or do. And then yesterday I was in the lift and I got in with the dogs, and there were these sort of rays of rage coming off him as I got into the lift. And then one of the dogs must have put his nose into the back of his knee, and he turned to me with such sort of vitriol. He said, "That's exactly what I didn't want to have happen, a nose in the back of my knee." And the thing is, if that had been you or David, maybe your response would be different, but I'm a smallish female, and he was a big guy, and there seems to be this permission to just be aggressive. It's this notion that there's permission just to be awful, rude, aggressive, and say disgusting sexual things to people, right?
Yeah. Can I just ask what I think about this?
Yeah.
Marty, the lady who was the recipient of the loathsome, contemptible rubbish from old Eros, the nude poet. How is she now? Is she okay?
She's
is she in that awful...
She's got a bit of toughness about her. Probably she didn't realise she had it, but she's got a mission in life. She's a bit of a scrapper. Like, she's been involved in how would you say, the crusade for the right things for a while. This sort of stuff though does knock the wind out of your sails, and even for me it does. But having that little bit of support is worth its weight in gold. Yeah. And I'd just say it's interesting, but these people that write this shit are the ones that would have written, that sort of stuff on public toilet walls.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they have the ability to get out there and write it. And look, the biggest thing, Annie, I told you in the last one about the nail polish challenge.
Yeah.
And I did it because there was a reason, but then I left it on because my granddaughter is always a little bit upset when it finally goes. You would not believe the number of critics that so-called questioned my manliness because I was wearing nail polish, or tried to undermine the story I was trying to put across because I had nail polish on. Well, it's a funny thing, and I'm going to sound like a dinosaur here, but I will guarantee you if they were within arm's length, they wouldn't do it.
No, yeah, and isn't that the point? Is the cowardice and the anonymity? But I've had some pretty awful stuff said to me, Snarky and I, because of the stuff we do around wellness and vaccinating, and it does cut. And you do have to be. I think you do have to be sort of tough and go, okay, well, I'm in this because I'm actually trying to affect change. But when it gets to, I know where you live, isn't that in a different sphere?
Well, Annie, I had I was one of the ones that had death threats back through the COVID times for exactly the same reason as you guys got them. But an interesting thing, about just before Christmas, I had a series of phone calls from someone, and the usual garbage. Have you had your vax? Have you had your booster? How's Anthony Fauci going? All that sort of thing.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
So I put a post up on social media because he rang from a number, like the number was displayed. So we hunted him down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people were willing to give him up. Anyway, it turned out he was a lot. And see, this is what worries me. If I know who's doing it, I'm comfortable. If I don't know who's doing it, you're watching your back the whole time. So I hunted him down. We found out, and he actually had to ring me, and he tried to, and I said, no, mate, you stepped over the line. That's it. So interestingly enough, some of his cohorts got started, and I received massive number of phone calls from private numbers. Now, they're not smart. I went straight away to Telstra, got the report done on the private numbers. They gave me the reference number and said, if you go to the police, we'll release these details. Now, I didn't do it. Now, due to the COVID era, there's an individual who's relatively local here. We've been nearly burnt out 4 times over the last
really?
few years. A fire the year before last burnt 13,000 acres worth of country, all deliberately lit. And we found out, not enough evidence to charge, but seen leaving the scene of a freshly started fire running. We found out who it was. Once again, police let us down in trying to get something done. So a couple of weeks ago, starting at 12:02, I got 4 phone calls from a number, and I don't answer them at that time of night. They actually left 4 messages. Then they started ringing from from a private number. I've got private numbers blocked, which interferes with my work and everything like that, but I've had it blocked. But the interesting thing is Telstra can still tell you. So I received a large number of those. I actually made a complaint to the police. I went in, I got a cop that I actually know who's a great bloke, and we listened to the messages there. I hadn't listened to them prior. So, and what
were they like, the messages?
Well, along the same lines. Your vaccination and all that sort of stuff. Then it was that bullshit yank stuff. I want to come over and slap you upside the head. They all think they're, tough guys.
I've never heard that expression. What is that?
Oh, it's an expression, a ghetto expression. Slap you upside the head.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
Then it's an American one.
Right.
Then there was. They said, oh, we want to have lunch with you. I want to sit down and have lunch with you. And they mentioned then the coffee club. There's 2 in Caneland Shopping Town. They mentioned the one that I go to. So anyway, when I said to the police, I said, I'm actually an elected official. So there's threats to an elected official. It's the nuisance phone calls. It's the threat of violence. And I said, apart from that, it's stalking. They know where I am. And worse to that,
it is stalking.
In knowing where I am, they know where I'm not. So this idea of fires, of theft and sabotage, all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So you're really worried. But the idiots actually mentioned the name of the bloke that we strongly suspect for lighting the fires. You hear it mentioned clear as a bell in the recording. So the police are currently looking at that. Look, I'm sick of mucking around with them. I will hunt them down. I will report them. And people need to stop saying it's not worth it. Just ignore them, because they do get worse. And
I'm interested. I'm very interested to hear you say that, because there is a lot. There's an awful lot of turn the other cheek sort of rhetoric. I get that a lot, which is, why don't you just ignore it? And
my question is, how's that worked out for you, Annie?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Really doesn't. No. But I guess, do you personally, do you feel threatened?
It's an interesting thing, and I touched on it when I was talking there before. I do I know this is funny, but when I got rammed that time, and as I said, it was the third time, he was literally trying to kill me. Now, for a long time there, I was wary when driving. If you're in a confined space, like crossing a bridge or something like that, where there was no get out, because I feel I'm at 61, I'm still quite capable. But when your options are limited, you start to feel worried. Now, this brought back a little bit of that, but I can control that. But what worries me, I am scared for the people around me, because if they know that I'm not there, what are they going to do? You know, there's a lot of people that rely on me that aren't as capable of me. So I can't afford to just ignore these characters. I've got to find them. I've got to know who they are, and I've got to do something about them. So, and I just wish that our legal system, policing and legals, and I wish other people were as enthusiastic, because they are a segment of society. Like those quotes I read out, are they even human?
Well, they unfortunately are. And how replicated are they? I mean, it's funny, you know, sometimes I walk down the street and I'll just see people walking towards me. And I look at them and I go, among some of you, somebody here is not trustworthy. Like they walk amongst us, right?
But Annie, I have a visceral hatred of a couple of people for good reason.
Yeah.
I have never thought of that sort of action against them. So what sort of person does that, thinks that? And to me, they're broken machines. They need to be taken offline somewhere.
Yeah.
At what point do you turn that from thoughts to action?
Can I sort of jump in here for a moment? And
Jump in.
Yeah, Marty, I'd be interested in your take on something that I've sort of believed and spoken about for a long time, and that is you talk about thoughts and actions, and you know we talk about taking action. We started the conversation by hearing about how some people communicated, you know, how they were communicating, you know, Eros the nude poet. I'm going to keep saying his name because maybe we'll find out who the person is behind it. Eros the nude person, nude poet communicates, right? And sometimes when people communicate, they think that that's somehow a bit harmless, you know, maybe it's just a joke. Or maybe it was just a comment, or maybe it was just a thread in a Twitter conversation, and when we are disturbed by it, and we should be disturbed by it, and we go to authorities and we say this happened, it doesn't have much traction because it's just words, it's just communication. The perspective that I've advocated for many years now, and that is that communication is action. The only reason why we communicate is to do something to other people. This is something that's like second nature to us as actors. You know, when you're looking at drama, when you're looking at a play, and there is action. Okay, some of the action is physical. You know, there's a kiss, there's a cuddle, there's a punch, there's a scuffle. You know, and in physical action, we can see very, very clearly what one human being is doing to another, and we can form a perspective on it. You know, that's a noble thing to do. That's a lovely thing to do. That's a terrible thing to do. That's not okay. And we can see it when it's physical action. Now, I would have thought that someone trying to run you over, you know, with a motor vehicle should be enough for them to be held accountable for it. But generally speaking, people do tend to be much more, we do hold people to account for the physical actions far more than we hold them to account for the psychological action. And
well, it's interesting, Dave. We do have a law, you know, using a carriage service to threaten, harass, and cause offence.
Yes.
But it seems that it just doesn't extend to social media. Like, and I know you said right. People think it's just for fun and whatever. Look, I've written all my life, prose, poetry, that sort of thing. Words, and I use words when I do my clips, when I write things, certain turns of phrase, certain words I consciously use because I know the response it gets from my audience. My art, really, I am an R a lot more than I used to, but my art was language. And, you know, we will accept that it works like that. Oh, that was a great speech. You know, it inspired people.
Yeah.
Well, at the other end of the scale, we've got shit speech that frightens people. There needs to be a way of hunting these characters down or blocking them across platform. There truly does.
I there's got to be a way of, you know, we've got a taxonomy to say that, you know, assault and battery. You know, we can look at a video of somebody doing something physical and we say that that's what this is. What I think is missing is that taxonomy, or that way of actually being able to accurately and objectively to describe what people are doing psychologically with the words that they use. And where I think that this is tremendously important, particularly, is in the progression of coercive control that then leads to domestic violence, that then leads to, you know, the murder of an intimate partner. And I've read so much stuff around that there is a progression, you know, that there are
we
these.
know that. It's very well documented.
It's documented, but it's not functional because
I can tell you what the naysayers will say to this. So, firstly, look, I'm not that stupid as to think that there's always intent, and there's people that say things that don't mean it. That doesn't completely absolve them, but I think intent is an aggravating factor. But comments like this, there is most certainly intent, and it's much more aggravating. But what's going to happen is, you know, the free speeches. Oh, if you jump on this, you know, you're limiting my ability
Free speech.
to have free speech. Well, look, you've got freedom to drive your car, but you don't have the freedom to run someone over.
Absolutely.
And that is exactly it.
Same logic.
There is a right. Like it's actually not in our constitution. Too many people need to read. They need to read ours, not the American one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can speak freely. But as has been said, and it wasn't me that said it, be well aware that there are consequences to expressing your opinion. You know, and so there should. If your opinion is out of line, if your opinion is directly harmful to others, then you should be held accountable.
But they don't want the whole free speechy. It's a one-way street. They want to say whatever they like, but you must never question them. And it's like you can't yell fire in a crowded theatre because right.
I find it difficult because there's more and more people on my page to keep replying. I try to reply as much as I can. And
I know you do.
And look, I'm happy as Larry to block when people are out of line, but some of them I use just to make an example of.
Yeah.
And especially when you get to the freedom warriors, you know, free speech. It's interesting, but I will reply, and I'll tell you straight out, it will take 2 and no more than 3 replies before they say to me, oh, you know, you shouldn't be saying that, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, because exactly. Yep.
They're the ones going on about free speech.
Yep.
But when they cop it back, all of a sudden they want you to stop, you know, because you're being too nasty. You know, I'm being horrible to them.
Yep.
I just find if you are defending an indefensible, an action or whatever that is just completely indefensible, well, I'm sorry, all bets are off. You'll cop the lash of my tongue. There's no 2 ways about it.
We used to have a fridge magnet that read, "Freedom of speech is not a license for stupidity."
And
the other one said, "Prove it," for all the people that say,
"Prove it."
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, the COVID vaccine caused more deaths than the COVID itself will prove it.
I,
You can't just say anything.
I wanted to sort of add my my editorializing of that fridge magnet.
Mm.
Okay, so freedom of speech is not a license for stupidity.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, accept that. Freedom of speech is not a license to commit psychological violence. I know where you live. I'm going to come and cut your thing off. You know, and that shouldn't be a difficult concept for us to.
But it's out of control, isn't it?
That sort of talk.
Well, that's what Martin's saying. It's completely out of control, and it's exponentially rising because there's not enough. The ramifications are non-existent, so they can just say what they like, unless you're Martin and you go, actually go back and get into a fight with them. Okay, then you have to have the language skills to be able to do that. I get nervous about because I don't want to be hunted down.
Annie, one strong person will never triumph over a lot of people that are nowhere near as strong.
Yeah.
And this gets back to my whole political thing. This is where, there should be no excuses for our politicians, our regulators, to let this sort of stuff go on. These people, they need to be held accountable. There needs to be a commitment towards prosecution, even if they're overseas. There needs to be something done about it. And look, I copped a lot of shade because I was totally supportive of the social media ban for under 16s.
Yeah, me too.
Now, flawed as it might be,
yep,
everyone kept telling me, well, the idiots kept telling me, oh, well, it doesn't work because my blah, blah,
yeah, they
blah,
got a
blah,
workaround. Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. What were you doing while they were doing it?
Yeah.
That's the question. Where were you as a responsible adult? What the government did was provided a backup for a parent
That's
that
exactly
actually
right.
wanted to do something but might have been a bit timid. Now, I'm so happy that has come in because this is the sort of thing that was out there and, dare I say, worse. So I just keep saying social media needs to be controlled. It really does. Or the grubs out there, the ones that take advantage, the ones that they're predators. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a member of the flock. It doesn't mean you're a sheep, but you've got to be on the lookout for wolves, and wolves need to be shot. I'm sorry. Just the way it is.
Yep. And I mean, to your point, we ask what is wrong with these people that you would articulate something like that or actually put that on paper, actually write that down. What is wrong? And I come, and then I talk to people and they go, well, they've probably got a damaged childhood, da, 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 da. And I get to a point where I'm like, I don't care.
No,
I don't care what's happened to them. I don't care.
My first thought with this was, what are the women around this bloke? How are they? What are they? What's their life like?
Exactly.
And especially if he's keeping that quiet, at what point does it come out? Now, I think I've told you before, I coach people with disabilities. I coach them who play tag football.
So does David, don't you? Mm. Yep.
There is an approach I use with coaching right through my professional career as a physio, and you've got to be smart enough. I completely appreciate why you are behaving like this. I understand, but I will not accept it. So in with what you said, Annie, they might have had a bad childhood. They might have had this and might have had that. Great. But the first thing you do is get the predators away from the prey.
Yep.
And then if you need to care for the predator, fine. But the prey, the average person needs to be safe. All you are doing is you are compounding the error. So, yeah.
That's right. And
I've said this with youth crime, with all of it. I understand the lives those kids are leading and everything like that. But the first thing, and I don't care whether it's rehab, I don't care whether it's above my pay grade. The one thing I would say is They need to be taken away from the environment where they can hurt other people and where they can hang around with people that propagate that sort of behaviour. Now, getting back to these sort of characters, I often wonder whether they are lone actors or whether it's almost like a
cult.
like a bit of a game. Yeah.
A game. Yeah. It's funny that when those two instances where I had in the lift, when I felt very, very intimidated, as they walked out, I thought, I wonder what it's like for a female living with you, if you can be that awful and make awful sexualized comments to a complete stranger in a lift or be super hyper aggressive. I mean, I've had a 45-second encounter with you and it's left me feeling blur, but you have to wonder, who do they go home to, right?
Well, that is exactly what I thought when I saw that first thing. And it's kind of interesting. Like, there are no lines. So I've been posting regarding the South Australian election, and I make no bones about the fact.
I was up too watching, Martin. I was up till 11.
Well, I despise One Nation, the organisation, for the simple fact, when you look at their leaders, so you've got Malcolm Roberts that said that any woman that commits suicide is an attempt suicide is an attention seeker.
Attention seeker. Lovely.
Pauline Hanson, the number of things she has said. So there's no good Muslims.
Oh,
Australia needs, Aussies want a strong leader. And then promptly started talking about Vladimir Putin as the leader.
Yep.
Corey Bernardi, who doubled down on his comments that same-sex marriage was basically
bestiality.
A gateway to bestiality. And I've been calling him, you might want to edit this, but I've been equating him to Donald Trump and calling him Corey. They're rooting the dogs Bernardi.
That's great. That's great.
But interestingly enough, on a couple of posts I put up last night, I got a character who got on and said in his first comment,
Hang on, this is when you posted about the South Australian election results? Yep.
I was taking a little bit of joy in the fact that
it was really good.
Completely underwhelming.
Yep.
And first of all, he said that, and then he said to someone else, because a couple of people got in to defend me, and I appreciate that. He said that it was well known during my football career that I was a drug taker. Now,
I saw that.
I've never taken an illicit drug. I am totally anti anything like that. So I hunted him down. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I've got enough information. The worst part is that the defamation laws in Queensland, you've got to be able to prove significant material harm, but him and I will have a conversation, and not over a phone or anything like that. I'm not in any way threatening the man, but he needs to know that what he said was completely out of line. And I've always said, and look, I know you're going to edit this, but if you can keep this in, I would really appreciate it. If you share a lie, you are a liar.
No, I agree.
So if this goes back to school days, bloke has a go at, goes off, I'm going to go and put that girl there, and he comes back and he tells all his mates, oh, she's a goer, she's a, you'll have to edit this, she's a slut, she roots, blah, 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 the whole bit. She never did a thing.
No.
Now, it's exactly the same now. It's just, the blokes that listened to that one bloke were spreading a lie about this girl and possibly destroyed a life. It's the same thing. People, and it's so easy to check. They put up these bullshit memes, the ones that, I don't know, I'm saying with great cynicism, I don't know why there were so many. All those pages and that were making up those stories about Pauline Hanson donating money and doing this.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know about how she was helping cancer victims, and it was so clearly AI slop, wasn't it? It was just terrible. And so for those people who aren't Australian, we had a state election last night in South Australia, and it was a thumping, resounding win for the incumbent left-wing government, centre-left, and our Conservative Party just went through the floor. And then there was another party that was sort of nasty. It's nasty anti-immigration.
It's the Australian UKIP.
Yeah, it's the Australian UKIP. Anyway, there was all this stuff online that they were just going to take over the world and it was going to be amazing. And what happened was the result was this resounding win for the centre left. The Libs went through the Conservative Party went through the floor, and this awful UKIP-like party didn't get a single seat, right, Martin?
And I may surprise you and a lot of your listeners, but I regard myself as a conservative.
Yep.
Conservative with a conscience, right? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see myself just to the right of that divide.
Yep.
And I believe that our discussions, our debates and everything should be about how to achieve the same thing, but in a better way. Now,
we need a good opposition, right? Don't we?
We need an alternative, not an opposition.
Yeah.
And we need that to keep the government on track.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I am so vehemently opposed to One Nation is they are far right to the point of it's just awful. And
Awful.
why I am so let down, I feel abandoned, I feel just like, and I think there's a lot of people feeling like that. We feel worthless because the Conservatives have moved to the right
Yeah,
to
no.
try and encompass the Screamers instead of staying
Yes,
firmly in the
exactly.
centre.
Exactly.
And I always explain it. It's a bit like a tennis match. You can't have a tennis match unless you got
Exactly.
two contestants, one either side of the net. And I see
And Martin,
us-
can I ask you, because it really interests me a lot, because it would seem to me that the dog whistling that the far right, the party moving to the right, the Conservatives moving to the right, seems to me to be very counterintuitive. It seems like it's obvious to me that moving to that far right position is not going to get the votes. But why do you think they keep doing it?
I think, to be honest, okay, I'm going to sound arrogant here, but I think because it's easy. And, move to the right, you think if you move to the right, we can just emulate the far right parties and get those people on board rather than staying there and having intelligent policy debates and trying to actually win voters from just on the other side.
Yeah.
People that are sitting in the centre, like, as I said, I'll use the tennis match again. We're watching that game. We've got a strong right.
Yeah.
And we've got a strong left, and they're relatively central. We're the people sitting in the stands.
Exactly.
The lunatics, One Nation, and maybe your far left, although we're not seeing a whole lot of them at the moment.
No.
They're the idiots right up the back, screaming out and throwing Coke cans and things like that.
They make so much noise, right?
That is right. And what has happened, we're sitting there watching, and all of a sudden one of those tennis players has gone, oh, I'm going to go up and sit with them. And all of a sudden we don't have a tennis match anymore.
Yeah.
Now, Labor needs to be held to account, and I would say it exactly the other way. If the Conservatives were in power, they need to be held to account.
Yeah.
We're going to do this, right? Why are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? What's the best way you're going to do it? Here's maybe a suggestion as to a better way. But I felt that I said on a clip today, I want a Mark Carney. I don't want a Donald Trump.
Oh, isn't Mark Carney brilliant?
He is just amazing in my eyes.
I know.
And I kind of think that, okay, let's go back to the shootings at Bondi sort of thing. What should have happened is, rather than immediately jumping on and trying to win political points, mileage, whatever you want to, we should have seen our leaders, or the leaders of parties, standing there shoulder to shoulder beside the Prime Minister,
100%.
calling for calm, and saying, give us a couple of days to work this out. To
They
get
didn't.
it right. And yet we had basically 2 or 3 months of absolute crap. Like all it did was divide rather than saying this is the time to come together. They didn't even wait till the bodies were in the ground. There were still people fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
And we're out there, some of us are out there trying to score political points.
Yeah. It was
it's about
very
time-
disappointing.
It's about time they started to look before they did something. Who is the beneficiary? I do this. Am I the beneficiary because I get more votes? Or is it, if I do it, is it the general public, the community that benefits? I may lose, but our society wins. That to me is true altruism, and that's what we've lost. Where is the altruism in politics at the moment?
Agree. You want to say something, David?
Look, and my observation exactly the same as yours, Marty. At a time when we needed to grieve and demonstrate compassion and solidarity as a community. I think about the way that Jacinda Ardern responded to the terrible
Christchurch massacre
over there. And in our own backyard, we had a wonderful example of the right way to deal with it. I'm not exactly sure what the New Zealand Conservatives did at the time, but they didn't launch into, the person responsible for this more than anybody else is the Prime Minister. And the thing is that if you look at what's happened over the last couple of months to what should be our viable alternative, the other people on the side of the net, enabling us to have a great tennis match of ideas and policy and progress as a nation. What happened was the whole mess of the hate speech legislation, which was the trigger for the breakdown of the Nationals.
Oh, God, that's right.
And that side of politics that should be our alternative just absolutely tore themselves apart with it.
But should it not? You're dead right. And you raised an interesting point. Like, stand shoulder to shoulder after the incident, call for calm, and then turn around to the opposing party and say, hey, when are we going to meet and discuss what's best for the people here?
Yeah.
On something like, we can argue about the economy, we can do this, we can do that, but on something that is directly impactful on people, whether they live or die, whether they're maimed, surely we could have got some bipartisanship on that. Instead, we got push. We've got to do something straight away. I have almost never seen an immediate action that is not ill-judged.
Yeah.
So push. Labor then dug their heels in. Then finally, and I'm not saying that they didn't look for political advantage once they were pushed that far, then all of a sudden the coalition got what they wanted, but they got it in a form they didn't like. Like, the whole thing has been an absolute, it's a debacle.
It's a debacle.
So,
But I think, to your point, Martin, that it's what is driving the current actors that we have in the political system, what's driving them. And it is most certainly not altruism. It is most certainly not, it's populism. And it's a hysteria. And I reckon that the Conservatives are keenly feeling, that they are holding on to the side of the cliff by their fingernails, which is why they jumped on that with such alacrity, because they're desperate at the moment. But, to both of your points, it's not the way to go. We should have been quiet and calm and respectful. I mean, I come from a Jewish background, and what they sit Shiva for 30 days, and that's what they should have been doing. Everyone should have been quiet and respectful.
Talking about stuff. And in that silence, we get closer to reality. What's actually going on.
Exactly.
And what I found particularly disappointing about the concession speech of the leader of the opposition last night was that it was totally disconnected from the reality. I was looking at someone who had done some media training, and they'd got together when they realised that they'd absolutely been hammered, And they said, okay, what are we going to say? Well, we're going to say we're proud of ourselves, proud of what we've done. We've done a great job, pride, 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 pride. And at the surface of these talking points, we had a complete departure from reality.
And Anne Rushton as well, sitting there in the
Yeah.
ABC panel going, she did a great job. No, she didn't.
And
Say that.
But the thing is
Oh,
that
God.
when we have a departure from reality, it's not just the departure from a political reality. We depart from our humanity.
That's right.
Look, you in that situation, I've been on plenty of losing sides, and if you want to guarantee that you'll lose again, you adopt that process. You must recognise that your performance was not up to scratch. Mea culpa,
Yeah.
But what I'd say to you, Annie, you're asking the question, why is it like this, politics and that? Politics is basically just real life social media. They're going for followers,
Grabs.
for this, for that.
Yep.
Now, I will say on my page, I've got a following that's increasing. At times it surges, at times it just trundles along. But I've lost a considerable number of followers, and I truly don't care. Like if you,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I will
totally.
be me, and people know what I am. And if you follow me, it is because you have 100% faith in my principles, now that should be the way politics is approached. Now, let people know what you are. Stand for something. And then if people decide that you are worthy of their vote, one of the most precious things we have, so be it. But you should not compromise your principles, just decency, just to get a few votes. And I actually had and I won't say who, but I had a conversation with a political candidate only yesterday. And I'd seen a photograph of them with someone that I think is detestable. And prior to that, I was, what would you say? I was actually pretty pleased with everything they were saying and doing. But I saw that photo and I said to them, I'm sorry, but that photo has done you a great disservice.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, well, I was trying to show people that I will work with anyone. And I said, well, you've lost me even further. There should be a line. Everyone needs a line. And if you are willing to cross that line, then you don't deserve anyone's vote. And as I said, would you work with Adolf Hitler? Would you? Oh, no. I said, so you do have a line. It's just a matter of where it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting
Now-
you talk about that because you're talking about you're very true to your values and your principles. And yet what I hear coming out of the Conservatives all the time is we've got to get back to our values. We've got to be true to our values. Or what are they?
As I said to this person, I said, there are literally hundreds of people over the years that I've refused to shake hands with. They want the handshake. My handshake means something. If I shake hands with you, it is for all the right reasons, but I will not shake hands with someone that doesn't deserve it. And there are literally hundreds of people, because of my past life, that want, or used to want, but still do, want photographs with me. And there's hundreds that have been disappointed because to be in a photograph with someone that is, it's a hard way to put it, someone that is not of decency and
Yeah.
not worth respect, it says
Yeah.
something about you.
Yes, of
I'm
course.
willing to stand with this utter grub and get a photograph taken. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You should have the courage. You purport to be a leader. And I'll give you an example. It was said to me, but you've got to represent, the people of your electorate. And I said, well, I'll ask you a question. If the people of your electorate all of a sudden come to you, you were elected, and they come to you and said, we want to slaughter all redheads. And the majority of those people said that. Do you go down to Canberra and say, my people want all redheads executed? Or do you turn around to those people and say, no, that is out of line, and as long as I'm leader, I will fight against that.
Yeah.
And then let the votes fall where they may. That's
Yeah.
something that everyone that wants to put their hand up for public office needs to think about. And I'll tell you something, I'm in my third term of public office, and I have done it since day dot. You can get by.
Yeah.
Do you think that you might join a political party?
Not a chance in hell.
Good to hear it.
Okay.
I'm well, look, let's talk about it realistically. I'm 61 going on 62 years of age. If you haven't got involved by the time you're 50, forget it.
Yeah.
Because it takes time to learn how it works. Then
Yep.
it takes time to formulate the change that you might want. Because a lot of people think when they get in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They realise you can't, because there's good reasons why sometimes you can't change things.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also things that you need to change, you can change, but you've got to change other things to make sure that the ramifications, the collateral damage from the first thing you did doesn't affect other people adversely. It is complex.
Yeah.
It's not just someone, and I get sick of, I heard it from One Nation candidates, people just want average people down there, people that can talk like them. I want the smartest people as leaders. And intellect, this thing at the moment that drives me nuts is that if you have intellect, you can't possibly have common sense. Bullshit. I've got both.
And I think that I've been saying this ever since Pauline Hanson first reared her red head.
Hang on, careful.
Redheads not have to be all killed, I know. That's right. That anti-intellectualism is just so dangerous. And, and I sometimes, it's terrible.
Isn't that the mark of every totalitarian regime that's
100%.
The pogroms?
Yep.
Whether they be left, whether they be right,
100%.
we slaughter the intellectuals. Why? Because they have the intellect to actually look behind what we're doing, to question.
Yep.
And they're harder to kid. The others just follow along. The old, what was the saying? Bread and games.
Yes.
Fall of the Roman Empire.
Comes back.
That's just bread and games.
It comes back to I'll just finish this. It comes back to, why I spend so much time banging on about critical thinking, because to your previous point, things are complex. And if you think that things are simple, then you're wrong. Things are not simple. Things are extremely complex. And you need to be able to search through the data, right, to find out what's actually driving stuff, as opposed to going, she just talks like me, therefore I trust her. What are we going to say, David?
I was going to say, I think that there's another myth, and that is that just because you're intellectual, let me phrase this right, just because you're intellectual, just because you're smart, just because you can think in ways that are beyond the capacity of other people, it does not mean that you lack humanity, that you lack compassion.
Yeah, that's right.
Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're an arsehole.
And of course, you can be a smart dickhead. We know that as well.
You can be a smart dickhead, but I actually think the people who are smartest in the right way know that we live in a world where we will get the very best outcome for everybody when we do value human dignity, when we do include people.
I'll tell you something. I agree entirely with what you said, and it's interesting. Like, I can never escape being a footballer, no matter how. And I was academically, very gifted. But
you told us the story.
It always
of
comes back to I'm just a footballer, because I think it challenges them. And I know I sound arrogant, but in actual fact, all of that crap is an arrogance. It is people that think that all they have to do is this, or it's simple to fix. If you have come up with an idea that is simple to implement, you've got to have a think, with all the billions of people in the world, no one else come up with that idea? Like, how arrogant are you? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure there's something you've missed, but I'll tell you something else. A smart person gains common sense by assessing a situation.
Yep.
Understanding the ramifications of adopting that course of action. That's what a smart person does.
Yeah.
Now, someone that just walks straight into it but survives the catastrophic incident and comes out and says, oh, geez, I've learnt from that, I've got common sense. Who was the more sensible? The person that had to go in it to find out, or the person that looked at it? And let's use a stove. I'm smart enough to look at that stove and say, that's hot. If I touch it, I'm going to burn my finger. There's other characters that are getting around telling people, oh, you shouldn't touch that stove. You'll burn your fingers. How'd you know? Oh, well, I did it last week.
That's right.
So seriously.
Yeah,
So
no.
who's got the common sense really?
And I think also they do say that very smart people are very aware of their limitations, so they understand how much they don't know and how much they have to learn. Whereas we know that the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the dumber you are, the more you think you know. It's like an inverse. It's a very interesting phenomenon. So people who don't know anything think they know everything. And then people that actually do know stuff are like, I don't know, I can't answer that question, I don't know enough. So this sort of inverse notion of intellect is very interesting.
It's interesting you say that, because while I was practicing, I found that I needed to be able to see that there was something wrong 100% of the time.
Right. Yeah. This is when you're doing physiotherapy?
Yeah.
Yep.
I focused on being able to figure out what was wrong 95% of the time, and being good at that.
Because it makes you look special then.
Of the time, because they were the common things. The 5% was the uncommon things. And I could have spent all of my time, becoming au fait with that at the expense of the other 95.
Yeah, because it makes you look special then. Whereas I made a conscious
decision, no, spend all of your time, bar a little bit, on being really good at 95% of the issues.
Yeah.
And that little bit just in being aware or able to pick that there was something wrong and refer that person to someone who specialised in that area.
Yeah.
And that saved me, and it saved, and I'll give you a quick anecdote, a lady that came down to me sent by a doctor, swollen leg. Doctor said, oh, she's pulled a muscle, you need to treat her. I'm a private physio, mind you. Looked at her and said, look, no, the way you're swollen there, I'm not comfortable with that. You need to go and get an ultrasound, a Doppler. I think you've got a clot. Went back to the doctor. The doctor blew up and said, you're only a physio, blah, blah,
Remit.
Blah. And I always found that the better doctors were very, very open to suggestion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the woman come down and I said, look, I'm not going to treat you. I know you've got something going on there. It's not within my remit. You can either go back to that doctor and demand, or you can go to another doctor. And she said, oh, I'll go to another doctor. So she went to another doctor. They sent her for a Doppler, and she came in a couple of months later. She'd been undergoing chemo because she did have a clot, and what had caused the clot was a large inguinal tumour that was pressuring on major vein coming through her groin. Now, I did not know that, but I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I was willing to say, hey, like, rather than saying, oh, well, yeah, it's a pulled muscle, I'll just go and do this and that. No. And that's what I mean. You just, you as you said, you've got to understand your limitations.
Yes.
No one knows it all.
Yeah, that's right. And go back to your values, and your principles. All right. Well, we've been talking for an hour and 5 minutes. Men folk. So I think we've probably covered, a bit. What do you reckon, Martin?
Yeah, I got to get going.
Good.
Sunday nights is the night that I wash my hair. So.
Oh, you've got a lot. You've got a bit to wash there too. Yeah. All right. Do your nails and wash your hair. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Martin. Thank you very much, David McCubbin.
Great to talk to you, Marty.
Very good. I think that was a very constructive and interesting discussion.
Annie, can I?
Yes.
Sorry to cut in again. Can I we've just launched our little podcast. Could I give it a plug, or could you give it a plug?
Please, right now. Please do it.
Well, the Gherkin and Frackman and I have launched our podcast. It's rough. It's ready. It's just three blokes having a conversation. And it's on YouTube under The Open View. So, yeah, come on over.
And what we know that we need these reasonable, analytical voices to combat the tsunami of disinformation in every context you can imagine. So please, they're three excellent, brainy men. Please tune into them, and please keep tuning into me.
Let me just check. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
The Open View, yeah.
The Open View. We'll put it in the show notes.
But if I do just go onto YouTube and
I think you'll find it if you search it, Dave.
OpenView, yeah, great.
I'll be searching it. Good.
Snarky did a great AI soundtrack for it. I love it.
God, he's
I
funny.
absolutely love it.
God,
You
he's
hear
funny.
more of it at the end of the podcast rather than the start. So wait until the end and listen
right.
to it. It's really good.
I'll have a listen. He's so smart and fantastic. Well, thank you to Martin Bella. Always an absolute pleasure to have him on the podcast. Thank you to David McCubbin. Thank you to Yo-Yo, who gave a nice sharp bark in the middle of it. And to all you listeners, as always, stay safe, stay well, keep your critical thinking hats on. See you later. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.